Last Friday, Delta Force released a new game mode called Victory Unite, and I've put in roughly like 15 hours in the game mode, and I wanted to give my overall impressions of it because it was a game mode that they were like promoting quite a bit in like the patch notes or the dev stream prior to the new season launch, and I can kind of see where they're trying to go with it. I think they want to make the game a little bit more competitive, or have a mode that's a little bit more competitive for those players that want a more tactical experience. So yeah, I thought I would give my feedback or just general impressions of the game mode as it stands. So we're going to start off with what the game mode actually is. So it is a 20v20 game mode. Each team gets a commander, and that commander can have access to marking high value targets and high value objectives. And then if the team actually works together and either defends or caps that high value objective or destroys the target, the commander actually gets a large sum of points, allowing them to get more call-ins. Now at the beginning of the game, anybody can apply to be nominated for the commander position, and everybody votes on who they think should be the commander. And during the nomination period, you can see the stats of each individual player. So what's their win rate and how many overall points they got in the Victory Unite game mode. The game mode also has much slower health regen, I would imagine to promote more tactical gameplay, so you can't really run around all over the place and then start auto healings shortly after a fight. You will need to really rely on either medics or resupply stations to get that health back, or even like walk over the enemy's ammo pouch that they dropped that you just killed in order to start the healing process a little bit quicker. Respawns are also quite a bit slower, so having medics that revive is a must, and skipping revives must be kept to a minimum, especially if you're on the attacker side, because then that's costing your team tickets. Vehicles also take much longer to actually be available again once they are destroyed, so you really have to think about how you're approaching flags as a vehicle player, and for the most part, vehicle players tend to keep in the back line, so not 100% sure on how I feel about that specific balance aspect. If the commander isn't doing their job, you can force a mutiny vote, and if enough players vote yes, you get the commander job, so then you can take over marking high value objectives and marking high value targets. The game mode also features squads that have an assigned letter, and each of those squads has a squad leader that can directly communicate with the commander, albeit I'm not 100% sure if this actually works, because I've heard the commander talk every single time, even when I wasn't the squad leader, and I was able to hear all the other squad leaders as well. So I think like they didn't actually put any work into restructuring how VoIP works. There's also no keybinds, as far as I'm aware of, to communicate directly with the commander or communicate with your squad. It's just a general voice over IP situation, much like we have right now, but instead it's to the whole team. I think you can kind of switch channels, but I would rather just have different keybinds allowing me to speak directly to the commander, speak to other squad leaders, or speak directly to my squad. I think it would make a lot more sense that way. So that's basically how the game mode works. As a whole, I think the idea is very good. The devs are attempting to have a more focused attack and defend mode with fewer players and more tactical gameplay by increasing spawn timers, heavily penalizing deaths and players skipping revives, as well as highly discouraging vehicle players to just Leroy Jenkins onto the objective. The overall execution of the Victory Unite game mode is pretty poor, I think, and we're going to get to the negative aspects right now. So currently the mode is only available on one map at a time, which makes the experience incredibly repetitive and sometimes tedious. And it's also kind of a head scratcher as to why they only made it available on one map at a time for a total of 2 maps since it was released, Ascension and Trench Lines, because as far as I can tell, no changes have been made to the actual layout and playable area of the maps, so they're literally just gatekeeping this game mode behind certain maps. And when the season launched, I participated in a creator event to play this specific mode early, and we got to play it on Threshold, so it really doesn't make sense as to why they are making it one map only per 24-hour period. It would really vary the gameplay if they made it available on more maps, and it just randomly picked a map every time you queue up. Completing high value objectives or destroying high value targets should reward more players instead of just the commander getting a large point bonus for it. It feels as though everybody's working to make the commander look good, which arguably is probably the case in an actual combat situation or an actual war, but seeing as this is a video game and everybody wants to perform well and get those nice points to be able to call in guided missiles and stuff like that, it would be nice for the players that participated in capturing the high value objective or destroying the high value target. Finding full games is also incredibly difficult. At its core, it is supposed to be 20v20, and in the roughly 15 hours I've put into this mode, I've never had a full game. The queue is incredibly quick, but the games are never full, which can result in a really boring match. Most of the time the game will start with 4v4 4v4 or 5v5 and max out at about 12v12 if you're lucky. Players also have the bad habit of leaving when getting destroyed, and this brings me to my other 2 points. There's absolutely no team balance whatsoever. I played a match earlier in which the enemy team had 4 more players than we did, and considering how small these games are in terms of player count, being that many players short on your side is a huge disadvantage. The teams should auto balance or something, because this just results in a very frustrating experience. Now you'd probably say, well, why don't you just leave? Well, currently there's like this event happening for the Victory Unite mode, which every time you finish a game you rack up some points for this specific event, which then gives you rewards, and if you leave a match in progress it will deduct points from your overall total. And as I said earlier, I really think they're trying to implement this game mode as a staple game mode in Delta Force to really have something that's a little bit more competitive. Bouncing off of that previous point, you also can't change squads or do any squad management whatsoever. And for a game mode that is heavily reliant on teamwork, being stuck in a squad by yourself or with another person is a huge oversight. Earlier I was playing as the commander and players had left the game, resulting in me being in a squad by myself. Can't spawn on squad mates, can't spawn on squad mate spawn beacons, or nothing, making the run to get back into the action very long. I honestly don't know why the devs even bothered implementing squads without the ability to manage them. It's just really confusing, because oftentimes you can just get stuck in a squad that is either not doing much, maybe just sitting in base, or they're completely AFK, and now you're stuck playing by yourself in the field. Games are also far too long, as every time the attackers capture a sector, the timer resets back to the maximum allotted period they have, which is 20 minutes, instead of just giving them a flat timer extension of, for example, 10 minutes every sector they capture. As an example, if the attackers don't capture each sector quickly enough, the game will just be never ending. In more than a few matches I played, the attackers capped each sector when there was only a few minutes left every time, so maybe 1 or 2 minutes before the game would be finished, and those specific matches on average lasted over 90 minutes, which is quite the time commitment and probably explains why players leave at the halfway point, because that's just too much time to be spending in a singular match of Delta Force, especially when for the most part the game itself is somewhat boring because there's not enough players to fill out the lobby. There's just not much happening at any given time. There's also a lot of things that are wrong with the mode's stability. I've been put in games by myself, waited out the full 20 minutes only for the game not to end. I had to physically leave the match, and it deducted points from my overall total for the Victory Unite event, which feels kind of bad because there was just nothing I could do. I was like, well, if I leave right at the start, I'm going to lose points, and then I figured I'll stay till the game ends. At least I won't lose any points, but then when the game timer ran out and the game never ended, I ended up still having to leave and get points deducted from my total. I also played another match where the game just ended even though the attackers still had tickets and time left to capture the sector, which everybody in the game that I was talking to in voice chat is just like, what the hell just happened? There was still tickets and time left and we were only on the first sector. So it was like, just why did the game end? Absolutely no idea. But it did, and then it just went to the end of round credits they set up for this game mode to showcase like the best medic in the game, the person with the highest kills, and all the different people that were in the different squads. So to reiterate my earlier point, as a whole, the idea of the Victory Unite game mode is good, but the execution is just very poor. It wasn't properly tested and it's painfully obvious. I'm a fan of game modes that offer a more tactical gameplay experience that also heavily promote teamwork, but as it stands, Victory Unite just really needs more work before it can amount to anything worthwhile. It has potential, they just need to gather feedback, implement much needed features like squad management, team balancing, and a matchmaker that actually starts games when there are enough players to fill a lobby, rather than starting matches with barely any players and then you have multiple matches going on at any given time that are all half full or less. So that pretty much wraps up my overall experience and impressions of the Victory Unite mode. Again, a decent idea. I think it just needed a lot more time in the oven. Let me know in the comment section down below if you've had a chance to play it. Did you even know there was a new game mode out? And yeah, let me know how you feel if you've played it. In any case, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.